Hi, kids. Okay, next up is The Shining, um, directed by Stanley Kubrick, based on the novel by Stephen King. So, Stanley Kubrick had just released Barry Lyndon, which is a very different film from The Shining. It's a period piece. He shot it in all natural light. It's very long. It's very slow paced. Uh, wasn't a very big success at the time, at least not in dollar wise. So Kubrick was looking to bounce back, make something that would make some money. And in the 70s, that was a horror movie. He thought, here's a really quick, easy way I can make some money. And he hadn't tried horror yet, right? Kubrick had done a period piece, he had done epics, he had done a war movie, he had done a film noir. Why not try horror? So he goes about trying to find a script to make his horror film. And he goes through scripts and scripts and scripts and finally lands on The Shining. So we've mentioned before, Kubrick approaches The Shining his way, right? So I'd compare it to like if you watch a movie and your interpretation of the movie is something, doesn't mean your interpretation is wrong, just means you interpreted it or you saw things differently than the author, the director, whoever, right? So I think that's the approach that Kubrick made to The Shining, to whom he made to his other films. He saw it one way, right? His view of what The Shining was about, or what he liked about The Shining, was not what Stephen King's The Shining was about, right? So, which is why uh, Stephen King was upset with the final product. Um, there had been two prior Stephen King novels made into feature films, right? We did Carrie, and then there's Toby Hooper also did TV film, Salem's Lot. So this was the third up at. Not too bad variety of directors so far. So he goes ahead and signs with the contract. There's a clause that Kubrick is allowed to change the script. Um, he has a bat at writing the script himself, and Kubrick doesn't really like it. Kubrick actually brings in a woman named Diane Johnson, who was a professor of like Gothic literature. She was giving lectures on Gothic horror, and so he brings her in to help him refine the script the way he wants, right? In the novel, uh, there's right, the reason they go to the hotel, and it's in the book as well, or in the film as well, is the boiler, right? Somebody has to take care of the boiler. And in the novel, as things slowly escalate and get out of hand, the boiler is starting to blow and eventually it explodes, right? And that's the central symbolism of the film, right? And it's a regular guy, and it's about alcoholism and family. Kubrick changes the themes in The Shining, right? The boiler, I think, is mentioned once, seen once. It's not something that's really seen. Kubrick takes his approach to characters and emotions in his movies, right? His movies always have the theme of people disguising and hiding their true motives and who they really are. So that's, to him, is the theme of The Shining. For him, it's the Breaking Bad thing, right? It's Mr. Chips into the evil, Scarface. So And he signaled that right away. He cast Jack Nicholson, and right away King was upset because he thought, no, people are going to associate Jack Nicholson with McMurphy. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, right? They're going to say, well, that's the crazy guy. He's already crazy in the start. But that was Kubrick's approach. Kubrick's approach is, yeah, he's already crazy, but he's trying not to be. He's trying to hide it. He's fighting himself. He's fighting his demons. Kubrick was not a person that believed in God and the afterlife. So he tried to tone down that aspect of it, tone down the ghost story aspect of it. A shoot was a long time. Script was changing all the time. Eventually, Nicholson would admit to not reading the pages until right before they're shooting the scene because he knew that they'd be changed before he shot the scene anyways. Shelley Duvall, of course, went under a lot of stress. The shoot goes on for over a year. They're shooting scenes all day. I think there's the scene in the bar, which is just two people talking. Apparently, they rehearsed it for 4 weeks, and it was a 13-hour shoot the day that they shot it. So Kubrick is right. He's got the reputation for attention to detail and for making his actors, pushing them to the limit until he gets what he wants. There's lots of directors that have tendencies like that. Take from it what you will. That's Stanley Kubrick. One of the reasons I wanted to bring up The Shining, not only because it's the counterpoint to Carrie, right? De Palma loved the book, didn't really want to change anything, wanted to capture that. Stephen King loved it, thought his adaptation was even better than the novel. This is the opposite, right? Just like with Spielberg and Jaws, Kubrick just took what he wanted, used it. It's easier to buy the rights to a novel and do what you want to it than to rip it off and get sued for ripping it off, right? So, wanted to bring it up because steadicam. So steadicam had been introduced in 1975. It was invented by a man named Garrett Brown. It had been used in films prior to The Shining. It was what they used to do the stair sequence in Rocky, Bound for Glory, which is about Woody Guthrie, Marathon Man. So it had been in films prior to this. It's in scenes. I mentioned in the last video, Halloween uses a version of the Steadicam. Kubrick brought Garrett Brown to the set, had him help him use it and utilize it the way that Garrett Brown had envisioned. So he had envisioned it as a tool to replace dolly shots, but also to get into scenes differently than traditionally done. So a movie like Alfred Hitchcock's Rope is supposed to be like a whole single take, and they move about the set, and the walls move in and out so the camera can go in and out. The Steadicam is a rig that just attaches to the cameraman, and he can walk with it, and he can just walk through the scene and control it. Kubrick utilized that, right, a lot. All those scenes with Danny on the tricycle through the halls to explore the spaces and give the feel that he wanted for the movie. So I didn't yet mention or discuss, but he wanted the feel of, and he screened David Lynch's Eraserhead, right? So that dream-like feel, like the sequence with the blood, the elevator usually gets off on the second floor. So brought Garrett Brown in. They used the Steadicam in new ways. He attached an odometer to the steadicam device that he made, a rig with like a wheelchair, reinforced tires, so that he could clock the speed that the steadicam is moving through the set and replicate that for every scene that the Steadicam is used. So it's always the same continuous pace, right? This film is about pacing. It's that dreamlike quality. He's not using, like in previous movies, he's not using noir techniques. He's not using Dutch angles. He's using those Kubrick angles, right? Film was made in a $19 million budget. When it was released, it wasn't a big release like something like Jaws. It was similar to the smaller releases, came out in 10 screens. Fairly big advertising campaign for a Kubrick film. Ends up getting $47.7 million. Not too shabby. Most people are happy, except for Stephen King and fans of the novel. Yeah, if you're interested, there's lots of lore about the filming of Shining and what does it mean and what was Kubrick hinting at and all that kind of stuff in the documentary Room 237. If you want to check that out, check that out. That's about it for The Shining. Wanted to highlight the Steadicam. Next video, I'm not too positive where we're gonna go actually, because there's lots of possibilities in the 80s. Stay tuned. Like, subscribe. Thanks, guys.